Today we wanted to talk about understanding contingency when you wanted to purchase home or you become a future homeowner.
Right, so a lot of people don't understand. There are a lot of options out there when we're talking about real estate. So actually what I did was I went to the North Carolina real estate offer to purchase. I looked at all of our addendums, and we're really going to talk about contingencies today that you can put in your offer.
Exactly. Therefore, understanding this common contingency is super important for you to understand it. Also, some of them really you need to talk about to your real estate agent professionals, because also depends on the buyer's market or seller's market. That's how he can leverage it to the goal that you want it to be have. That of course is being a homeowner.
Now I understand if you're in a hot market and you want the prettiest house on the block that just hit the market this weekend because it's amazing and you want that home. Having a lot of contingencies when they're going to have 37 other offers are not necessarily going to be in your favor, just not. On the other side of it though, if the house is not the hottest house on the market, here is where a lot of deals are made. So there's a few of them that we're going to talk about that are a part of everything, and then we're going to really kind of go into the more details.
Exactly. And the first thing that we wanted to talk about, inspection contingency, which basically allows the buyer to inspect the property and back out or renegotiate if there's a significant issues with the house. However, in the state of North Carolina, the story is a little bit different.
Well, that's because we have a due diligence fee, which is the right to inspect the property at all. So we have paid a non-refundable fee to sellers. However, just because you have paid a non-refundable fee doesn't mean that you shouldn't get inspections and that you can't negotiate. We just have to go understand when we're making the offer that you're going to lose money otherwise. So you want to be sure there.
Before we dive into the next item, let's
hit it. Hi, it's Alan Victoria. Welcome to our channel and podcast.
And if this is your first time in our podcast and YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and get notified.
Also, you call text all the time, 252-327-3357. We love talking to you. Don't be shy. Also, grab our buyer's guide and seller's guide in the description below. Now let's talk about financial contingencies, which is part of every contract really. Because if you're saying I'm going to get a mortgage, you have to make sure that you can withdraw from it. Again, you're going to lose your due diligence fee if you're a buyer. But of course, nobody can force you to buy a home if you cannot afford to buy the home. So
exactly,
you are going to lose your due diligence fee, but there is the financial issue.
Exactly. But there's an exception if some builder actually, if you are not getting financed with their own preferred lender, they might give you that due diligence back.
Next one is the appraisal contingency. So the appraisal contingency is if you are, say you put an offer in, I'm going to make up some numbers now, for $200,000, and it comes back at $195 or something. So it's either, you have three options when it comes to appraisal issues.
Exactly.
You can back out of the deal and then lose whatever due diligence fee. We can negotiate on that $5,000 and try to work out a deal, or you pay that money. So those are the three options when an appraisal doesn't work. But of course, your agent's going to do what's best for you, and we're going to try to work a deal. So just understand that that's there.
Therefore, definitely understand the bank is not going to cover the difference in your appraisal, and you're going to go in one of the three ways that my wife mentioned.
And what's the next common one?
The next one is the sale of the previous home contingency, which is very common for many people that even they are in the local area in the town that they are selling their house and buying, or they're out of state and they're coming to for example, North Carolina.
So when you need to sell your home, we're going to tell them right up front that you need to sell your home. So that is really what is going on there. And then a lot of people will still accept it, so don't think it's unacceptable. It's just you have to be upfront with it, because what happens if that deal falls through? So just understand. Next thing, title contingency. Of course, you need to buy that home free of anybody else who might be able to come and claim a property. So you want to make sure the lawyers are working to make sure title is clear.
Exactly. And what you wanted to talk about after
now,
that?
let's talk about other ones that people don't know about. So this is kind of other ones that are a little bit more interesting to me. So number one is the expiration of the offer. So if you are thinking that these people are going to play with you because you put in a number, or you put in, I don't know, the offer, but you think they're trying to use you to get something else, we can put an expiration date on there. So if you're worried about your offer being used somewhere else, well, let's put an expiration date on there. It's where you can have 48 hours to decide something like that. That way they know they need to give you an answer, yes or no, right away.
The next thing is septic system must work for now, no?
Right. So you can put right in there, you need that septic system to be working. Otherwise, what's the purpose of buying a property? And if you have any suspicions on that septic system, we can put that in as part of the initial offer as well. That the septic system is something we're looking at as we're buying this home.
The next one is home is subject to a lease.
Right,
no?
so this is something important you also need to know, because if somebody's leasing a property and you bought this property while the lease is there, they have the right to stay in that lease until their lease is over. And we recently had a client who was buying new construction, but they were in a lease. That home got sold. But really, we had to tell the people buying the home, like, hey, this is a home subject to the lease till the end of the month, and they don't want to be bothered with all of the other stuff because they have a right to privacy. So you do have to understand, if you're the buyer in that situation, yes, you're going to get a home on a certain date, but understand that lease agreement means that they have the right to be not bothered.
Yes. The next one is a little bit tough. Agree upon the repair before even put an offer.
I've done it before, though. Okay, so in a situation where we're walking into a home and we have suspicions like, this HVAC seems to be sketchy, or the roof is sketchy, we can put in an offer saying, okay, we're going to need you to repair the HVAC, and we're going to ask you to repair the roof, or whatever it is there, before we actually, you agree to the contract, understanding that we need that repair done in order to buy the home. And this is something a lot of people don't even realize that we can ask for. So we have to notice the detail, we have to be able to prove that there's a problem, but you can definitely sometimes, a bad roof is a bad roof, it sticks out.
Exactly. Pool inspection and measurement. This is the next one. I mean, not all the houses that have the pool.
But say you're buying a house because you want to put a pool. You have the right to go send measurements, even if they're living there. So they have to kind of allow you to send people to the backyard to kind of measure out where you want to have that pool put for when you buy the home.
Exactly. The next one is the loan assumption.
Right. So a lot of people had 3% loans, FHA, VA, and those loans are sometimes transferable to the new person. And if they had a 3%, a 2.5% loan, maybe you can assume part of that loan in order to get there. So that is something that we would have to put into the offer right away.
Exactly. The next one is a lead-based paint. Not everybody is familiar. If you are not, and
if the home is older than 1976, we must require that we have filled out the form that you are aware that the house could have lead paint.
And next one is FHA VA addendum. What is that?
Okay, so if you're using an FHA loan or a VA loan, there are different rules when you're dealing with these loans. It's not the end of the day, but there are specific rules, so we all have to agree that we're following these rules.
Because VA also is very diligent, and FHA about the inspection and what is the safety and health of the house. The next one is seller financing.
Seller financing is one that's not very common these days. There's a lot of reasons, because there's a lot of scams this way, to be entirely honest. But a lot of sellers aren't really for it. But it is, if it's a rent-to-own situation, seller financing can still work. It does still exist. And if that is what we're trying to do, I mean, if that's what they've kind of talked about, maybe it's going to work out. Maybe.
Exactly. At the end, what we wanted to say, after all of this contingency that my wife collected, you definitely wanted to think about it if you wanted to address any of this contingency in your offer. But as my wife said, you might look first before you do that, because contingency makes your offer weak, no?
Right. So I would say definitely want to be reasonable. Don't overload your offer, because if you overload your offer, it's not necessarily going to work out too well, because sellers are going to say, no, thank you. I don't want to deal with this headache of this person for a whole month. So you have to be reasonable, because they can just wait for somebody else as well. They have every right. They don't have to give you that home. So we have to be reasonable. We have to remember that they're humans, you're humans, and we have to kind of work together in order to make this thing work. So it's always better to kind of work together. Also be reasonable.
Exactly. Time frame also is super important. And definitely realistic timelines for any contingency that you put in the offers should be important, because if it's too short, you might not have enough time to basically work on the stuff that you need to work. And if it's too short, then too long is not good for the seller either.
Right,
and put off the seller.
And the next thing is everything has to be in writing. Make sure that these are all very clear from the beginning what the clearly stated offer is. Nothing is left to chance. We are checking all the boxes if we are putting in a contingency offer. Other thing, they do not have to accept all of your contingencies. Everything is negotiation. They might not even negotiate with you at all, and because it's too much, maybe they are reasonable. They will communicate with you on some, but you have to prioritize what you're willing to waive and what is the deal breaker. So you have to kind of understand what your bottom line is.
And as my wife said, you need to also be ready to compromise, because if you want to really that house at the end of the day, you need to basically see which one is really important for you, this contingency or getting really the house.
And it might just be maybe they're going to give you money at closing for this because they're going to get it out of the sale of the home, and it's not going to be a repair before you buy the home. So are you willing to wait and they'll send the roofer after? So just understand things are there, and understand the seller is, if the market is hot, the seller's not going to bother. If the seller is less willing in this situation, if the market is a little cooler, your offer might be accepted, but they're going to be looking for the most appealing offer even still, because they don't want a 30-day headache to sell a home. They just want to sell the home and move on to whatever they're doing. So we just have to remember sellers are human beings too, and they're not just being greedy. They just want to understand what it is that they truly want, which is to sell this home, and they just want it there.
Yeah, do you have a story that you wanted to share?
No, I'm good.
You are good. Therefore, what you wanted to talk about now about the contingency solution. No? Therefore, the first thing that we wanted to talk about contingency solution for inspection issues. No, because when you see the house in advertising, marketing a house sell as is, means the owner or the seller doesn't want it to do any kind of repair for that house.
I mean, you can also ask for repair credit. There's different issues. Is it an absolute deal killer about the bad roof or whatever, or can you handle it after? Another thing is going to be a financial hurdle. I mean, yes. I just used the roof as an example. It could be another one. But be transparent about your financial situation. Make sure the seller knows that you are good for this money, because the last thing they want to do is spend all of this time fixing all of this stuff and then find out you're not good for your money. So that is the worst thing for the seller, to realize that you're not even worth all of their time and aggravation.
The next thing is appraisal
Which
gap.
we talked about.
We talk about, definitely make sure you do your due diligence about the price of the house with your real estate professional so you don't bump into the problem. And what is the bottom line really with the contingency?
The contingencies are all, you can be negotiated. So that is kind of what this whole thing is about, is you have a lot of ways to negotiate. You want to make the deal as attractive to the seller as possible, where they want to work with you. But at the same time, you want to remember that negotiation is negotiation. They don't have to negotiate. They can negotiate with you. But the more we are willing to kind of compromise, the more a deal will work together. So I always recommend compromising is better.
Exactly. And don't forget to call Alan Victoria at 252-327-3357 or going to our website, alandvictoria.com. We love to connect with you.